Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
All right, it is Friday Roundtable, man. Jake Wimberly's going to join us here in just a minute. I'm your host, Rob Browne. Next couple of hours, we're going to cover a lot of ground, sift through the carnage of the first night of the Sweet 16 activity. Arkansas went down hard. Tennessee, 7-point loss to Florida Atlantic. And the Owls, you better give a hoot. They're good. They're now 33-3, a Conference USA champion, and they beat UAB 3 times. There's some damn good basketball being played all over the country, not just in the Power 5 conferences, Group of 5, mid-majors, the other ones. There are 32 conferences in America that can qualify for March Madness. And you better pay attention. We say it every day on this show. The teams that have been together 4 and 5 years, and some of them have guys that are 6th and 7th year players, because nobody seems to graduate anymore since the virus outbreak. The pandemic was declared March 11th of 2020. People don't graduate. Hell, a lot of people don't even go to work anymore. I don't know how they're living. Good gosh. What a tournament, man. This is exciting stuff. I hate that Arkansas and Tennessee are out. Still got Alabama. They're the only hope. Like last year, Arkansas was the only hope for the SEC in the Elite Eight. So the Tide, they got their work cut out for them. That's going to be a tough game against San Diego State. They're good. They're a physical team. Played in the Mountain West. Them and Utah State both made the tournament this year. So we'll talk with Jake Wimberly about that. Jason Caldwell inside the Auburn Tigers will join us. It's interesting. Yeah, it's interesting to see Auburn is actually recruiting football players again. They got out of the business during the Harsin era. They had a closed for business sign. I kind of coincide with the virus for the last 3 years. Auburn just didn't recruit players. All these kids now, these 4 and 5 stars that were just, Georgia and Alabama, just, picking who they wanted. Auburn wasn't even putting up a fight. Those days are over. Auburn is back in the fight. Put your dukes up. They're ready to rumble. So this is exciting. Baseball underway. Spring practice everywhere. Hour number 2, Bo Carter from Dallas will join us, and the intern, William Billy Ray Valentine Halliday, will check in with us to talk about what he's learning every day as a young sports writer. Follow us on Twitter at sidelines_live. We're here 6 days a week. Let's get going. Jake, last night, SEC, we just, in my opening Robalog or whatever, went down. We got one team left, Alabama. Were you surprised at what UConn and Florida Atlantic did to those 2 SEC teams at all?
With UConn, no. I'm not surprised with UConn. With UConn, no. I'm not surprised with what UConn was able to do. FAU, absolutely surprised with what FAU was able to do. But it's March Madness. I mean, we're down to the Sweet 16, headed to the Elite Eight, so there's no hiding at this point.
Yeah. And, UConn, I think this is they've been to 18 Sweet 16s, I think a dozen Elite Eights, 5 or 6 Final Fours, and they've got 4 national championships. They were big early in the season, kind of faded back, and then at the end of the season, look at them. They have not lost to a team this entire season outside of the Big East. If Marquette was still there, you'd have 4 teams from the Big East, but that's a hell of a league. Did you think the Big 12 during the regular season was the best league in the country?
I'm sorry, I was breaking up on me just a little bit. What was you saying about the Big 12?
Did you think that the Big 12 was the best league in college basketball during the regular season? They seem to be that. Big 12 seemed to be the best league in the regular season. I thought the Big 12 was the best league in the country in terms of just night in and night out. You had Kansas came in as the number 1 seed, and they go out in the second round against Arkansas. And you got Kansas State. We're going to talk about them in a second, but Kansas State, that's a good team. They had 2 players when the new coach came in that stayed around, and that was it. You have to go in there and you think to yourself, you bring in a new coach, you got guys coming in through the portal, but Noel and a childhood friend of his, they were the only 2 that stayed. He hit the critical 3-pointer there. Actually, it was a 2 there late in the game, but I don't know. This is just exciting basketball to watch. You want to see the SEC. You want to see the SEC schools do well, but looking at the big picture from 40,000 feet above, it's a hell of a tournament. But for people that have brackets, Jake, we talked about this yesterday. 20 million people, 20 million or more, were on the ESPN website with their brackets after the first day, after last Thursday, heading into St. Patrick's Day. Of those 20 million and change, only 653 were still perfect brackets. What are those percentages? They're not very high. And I'm just looking at it.
Winning the whole thing. So it was very small.
Yeah. So, and now you've got Alabama against San Diego State. Week in, week out, you've got an 18-game SEC schedule. The ACC plays 20. Is Alabama – you have Alabama going all the way to bring home the national championship?
Yeah, I think you could definitely make a case for that. And then you look at Houston and what Houston, I think right now it comes down to Alabama and Houston, but there's some good basketball that we saw last night. We'll see some other tonight, but I like Alabama's chances as good as anybody, especially the way that they're able to kind of flip that switch and turn it on at any given moment. Alabama they're long. They play well together. That's a very, very good basketball team in Tuscaloosa.
Yeah. And you look at Brandon Miller, a big guy, 6'9", 6'10", they can post up and hit 3-pointers. He's remember Jabari Smith at Auburn last year? Occasionally Walker Kessler would do it. But when you got a big guy who can block shots, run up and down the court, and play defense and hit threes, and he's got other teammates on the team that are really talented, that's why I'm still picking Alabama to win the whole thing. So, and what's your bracket? How many of your teams are still alive for your Final Four?
I think I've got one. I actually had Marquette winning the whole thing. But yeah, my bracket is absolutely toast this year. So I'm actually literally just the onlooker and kind of a sports guy watching the rest of the tournament play out. But I love the tournament. It's fun. Some years you get your brackets right, some years you don't. But who really had FAU headed to the Elite Eight? I don't know. A lot of people did.
I can say probably 2 people, other than the people at Florida Atlantic, but not me. Believe it or not, I've still got Alabama in my Final Four alive, Kansas State alive. Kansas went out in Miami. So Miami will find out tonight when they play Houston. That'll be a tough matchup. Jake, I want to switch to college baseball real quick. Mississippi, the state, top to bottom, really well. It's shocking when you realize that Mississippi State, going back to last season, has lost 14 consecutive SEC games. They went on last weekend was about the worst opening weekend of SEC baseball. I've never seen that many sweeps in one weekend, but Mississippi State went on the road, lost all 3 to Kentucky by a combined score of 35-11. They must have had 3 field goals and a safety. That's pitiful. How does that happen at Mississippi State, the cradle of college baseball?
Well, I think it's a multi-layered answer there, and there's still parts of that answer nobody really knows.
Yeah.
One, there's been some injuries on this baseball team that date back to last year. There's still some injuries that are out there on this baseball team, and then I think there's been some misevaluation of talent, if we're being completely honest. and that falls strictly on the coaching staff there at Mississippi State. I mean, when you look at Mississippi State, they do not look like South Carolina this year. They do not look like even Ole Miss or LSU or other SEC teams. It is honestly one of the most baffling things I think we've seen in a long time, as you go from a national championship team straight into the other side of the whole deal. And we know it can happen in sports, but I think when you chalk it up with injuries, misevaluation of talent, and then some guys that everybody has this, but you have guys that were expected to be on campus and now they're off to the major league ranks. So I think it's a convoluted mess there in Starkville, honestly.
Yeah, and a lot of people will tell you, well, NIL should help with that, and they say the same thing about the G League. They don't pay that much in basketball. That'll keep players there, but how much are people willing to spend? You're not gonna if a kid's a first round pick and he's offered $5 to $10 million, they're gonna take it in most every case. But the ability to get a guy to come on campus for a minimum 3 years in that system, it seems like it's better for them versus going straight out of high school to the minors. They get a little bit of money, but it's a lot of wear and tear on their bodies. And a lot of those guys just, they fizzle out. But looking at Ole Miss, they went on the road last week, lost all 3 to Vanderbilt. And of course, you're talking about the toughest baseball league in America. If you counted Oklahoma and Texas last year, that'd have been 6 of the 8 teams at the College World Series. And now they're coming in to the SEC in 24. Hell, there's nowhere to hide, is there?
No, there's really not. And, look, Ole Miss and Mississippi State to that degree too. Let's see what they do this weekend. Let's see how, they perform this weekend. I don't envision Ole Miss getting swept this weekend. Mississippi State's got a tough task. We'll see what happens there. But you're right. When you're already the toughest baseball league in the country, and now you're bringing in Oklahoma and Texas. And I thought about that. I know a lot of people did last year with the College World Series. Those 2 teams that were there, they're going to be in our league here in the next 18 months. But it's one of the toughest leagues in the country. And, not just Mississippi State, not just Ole.
Yeah. And both schools, and I think Ole Miss they're adding another $40 million into their stadium, Jake. That's going to be $128 million that Ole Miss has spent on baseball facility. Is there any end in sight? Are we entering into an arms race with college baseball similar to what we see in football?
No, I think there absolutely is the case. When you look at what Mississippi State did, what Ole Miss is doing, what other people is doing, college baseball is the next big arms race. I mean, football is going to be there, but you see
it just seems like, it seems like the fans are they're clamoring for college baseball because it's not all about NIL. And
it's not about NIL. I mean, for college baseball, it's still one of the pure games in sports. It's one of the pure games in college sports, and especially not only the state of Mississippi, but our surrounding states love baseball. If you don't believe it, just hit any baseball park tomorrow and watch all the tournament teams that show up.
Yeah, we were supposed to have what is it? It's not Jackson Prep. It was Jackson Academy, or was it Heiser's team was supposed to come up here. One of the schools right there, the private schools right around Jackson. A friend of ours' son, Heiser, was supposed to come up and play at CBHS in Memphis, and they canceled the series tonight. We live in a different era. I mean, when we were growing up, you had practice, you played the game, you didn't call it in advance, but yesterday, they canceled it. I understand there's bad weather and the need for safety and all, but why not try to play the game? Because, I think we both know sometimes the weathermen aren't right, but we're having some really severe storms right now where we are. We're over at the farm in Parkin, 30 minutes from the streets of downtown Memphis. But high school baseball within 250 miles of Starkville and Oxford is about as good as it gets anywhere in America, isn't it, Jake?
No, there's no doubt it is. The biggest thing for Mississippi State and Ole Miss is trying to keep some of that talent here. The best player in the class of 2024, comes out of Jackson Prep. Connor Griffin, he chooses LSU. So, it's just keeping that talent in state. It's a lot of talent, but it's just keeping it right here. And it's a lot of teams coming in to cherry pick that talent. Yeah.
And you've got Southern Miss as well. Last year they hosted Ole Miss in that series, and and there were 8,000 people there. They have a really good program. It's just less than 3 million people, and Mississippi's the center of the universe in baseball. We're going to take a break here, and we'll come back. I want to get more into the football because spring practice is underway. What's your thoughts on Ole Miss's quarterback? Who you think it's going to be? Jackson Dart going to hold on to it? What will Lane Kiffin do? He's got to replace his offensive line coach, Jake Thornton, who went over to Auburn. Hell, everybody's got the portal issues to deal with. And then you got to worry about players coming in and knocking on your door every day saying, hey, that school or this school is offering me this much for NIL. What are you going to do for me? But before we go to the break, I want your thoughts. I think people are already burned out on NIL. You know, how many times can a spoiled brat who doesn't do the yard work, doesn't cut the grass, go to his parents and ask for an advance on his allowance?
Yeah, I would say there's definitely some fatigue in the public circles for sure with NIL, but it's not going away. We know that. That's why it's important for these universities to continue to try to, cultivate those dollars. We'll see what happens with it. But as far as the general public, yeah, there's absolutely some fatigue, and we're barely a year into this thing.
Yeah, I mean, July 1st of 21. And that, I guess what I'm saying is, I think, Jake, it's going to be a lot like the Olympics where you have certain stars every time Summer Olympics or Winter Olympics that make some money, and the rest of them better get their degree, better go, get a good job. They may coach a little bit on the side and do some clinics, but I think the fans, at least in basketball, I'm not hearing any talk during the tournament about NIL, and I love it. Now, I know we got to have it, but they're already getting enough. All right, we'll be right back with Jake Wimberly to talk some college football. We want to look at Mississippi State and Ole Miss right after this.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
Got a text here from Grandma Moses down in Moultrie, Georgia. SEC folks like you, Rob, struggle to cope with the Big East basketball being compared with SEC football. Contraire, Grandma Moses, whoever you are. I was giving respect to the Big East. Jake, you and I grew up with Big Monday. Remember that? I mean,
yeah.
Good God, how much better could you get than Jim Calhoun, John Thompson, Jim Boeheim, and Thompson almost killing each other? I mean, no, absolutely, Grandma Moses. I have tons of respect. I missed the days of the Big East basketball, so give them credit where it's due. But let's talk some college football. Man, we're going to miss Mike Leach even more as it gets in spring practice and in the summer, SEC media days. He won't be there. It wasn't, and he was at Mississippi State for only 3 years, but he had a hell of an impact. And everywhere he was, it was like that. And college football needs more truth brokers, like him. What about, Zach Arnett? And he was the defensive coordinator. He knows the players. What's he going to do differently? They won 9 games last year.
When you look at Mississippi State differently, I mean, I think what you look at, one, defensively, they're not going to change a whole lot. So what you see is what you get. It's going to be a defense. When they get off the bus, it's not going to be Alabama. It's not going to be Georgia, but it's going to be a pretty darn good defense. It's going to be a defense that's well coached. They play well. they do enough. Offensively, I think that's where you're going to see some fairly drastic change. I mean, you look at Barbe, the offensive coordinator coming in, already working on, a lot of, 11 personnel, 12 personnel, moving some tight ends into the offense, some rollout passes during the spring for Will Rogers. So, I mean, you're going to see that run game manifest itself in this offense. And Mike Leach, we know, didn't run the football. So any addition to the run game, even if it's 20% more, 30% more, is going to be a drastic difference. So, I mean, Mississippi State's not going to get away, and Zach Arnett said this, away from their passing principles. But I think you will see the addition of the tight end, and you will see the run game populate itself more in the play calling.
Who are some of the guys that State has brought in via the portal that have caught your attention so far?
Well, you got a tight end, and his name escapes me, coming from a Power 5 school. That was an immediate need that they had to have. You've got 2 defensive backs, Radar Jones from LSU, and then Kamari Rogers from Miami. Those are 2 guys that, should insert themselves back into that secondary on that third level. So, Mississippi State doesn't have a ton of portal help. Got a kicker coming in. They drastically needed help in special teams play from the kicking standpoint. So, as you said, Rob, I mean, this is a team that won 9 ball games. They've got this will be the first time in the history of the program they'll play 8 home games. Now, obviously, some of those are going to be, extremely hard football games. But, the thing is really teed up with Will Rogers coming back from Mississippi State and Zach Arnett to win 7-8 ball games if they stay healthy this year.
Well, I think they could win more than that when you got a quarterback like Will Rogers. And, I mean, put things in perspective. He, in 24 fewer games than Aaron Murray did, broke the SEC record for passes, completions, yardage. That's impressive, yet seems like he goes under the radar. There's a narrative people have. We all get that, but he needs to be part of that narrative because he's a hell of a football player. Your thoughts on Ole Miss with this? My take: Lane Kiffin and Auburn. Who flirted with who? It doesn't matter. It was a distraction. If anybody says it wasn't, then they've never vacillated between one job or going to another firm. They got a lot of talent. But last year, it looked like their schedule was back end loaded. Combine that with all that distraction, it didn't help. What do you see going into this year that makes you think Ole Miss is going to be a 10-plus win? Because that's the new standard at Ole Miss. They have to look at it like that.
Well, it's going to be tough. They bring Georgia onto the schedule. So, you got Georgia and Alabama. Also, they got a trip down to Tulane this year. That is a really tough place to play, especially if you've never been down to that stadium. I love that stadium. We had an opportunity to go down there this past year and watch Southern Miss play. It's going to be a tough schedule. So I think what you look at is for Lane Kiffin, he was not happy with his quarterback position. We know that. Lost Luke Altmaier to the transfer portal. He'll have an opportunity to start at the University of Illinois for Brett Bielema this year. Brings in the freshman from LSU, Howard. He's probably going to be the guy by all accounts moving forward. But this is about Spencer Sanders, and this is about Jackson Dart. And Lane Kiffin said it earlier this week. We had David Johnson on, and David did an article, a really good article as always on 247 Sports, where Kiffin was quoted in his press conference saying, hey, this is not something we're going to finish this spring. It's going to go into the fall. I don't think we're going to know until probably the second week of the season who's going to be the guy. But, if we're kind of, projecting and pigeonholing people, I like Spencer Sanders' shot. I mean, when you look at what he did at Oklahoma State, the guy's 4 years of football. He knows how to play. Jackson Dart does too. This can only make Jackson Dart better. But if I'm, kind of predicting this thing here, I'm gonna lean Spencer Sanders. Yeah.
And then you got Keyshawn Judkins, a kid out of, Park Crossing, Montgomery, 38 miles from Auburn's campus. And they didn't even recruit. Again, the closed for business sign is out of the window, but still they've got talent. They've got some serious talent on that team. Looking at the rest, and you and I were talking, and I loved being on your show a couple of days ago down in Jackson in the afternoons about the quarterback deal. But I really think Florida is really an interesting deal with Billy Napier. He can't have another. I know he's got a big contract, got a big buyout, I'm sure. There's no way Florida can afford to have another 6 or 7 win season with what he's got. More guys on staff than there are players dressing out for games.
It's going to be tough. I talked to Ryan Green out of Jacksonville, Florida, 1010XL about Florida earlier this week. And, they could be better, but their schedule is so brutal. They're bookend. They go to Utah first week of the season. Obviously, they end it with Florida State. They got to go to, I believe, LSU. They got to go to Kentucky. I'm just rattling this off the top of my head. A lot of road games they got to go to. But, the thing about Graham Mertz is they're going to have to get the most out of Graham Mertz, the transfer quarterback out of Wisconsin. And, when you look at it, Anthony Richardson was such a dynamic player. We'll see what he develops into in the NFL, but he could throw it 70 yards, but he had problems completing the 7-yard pass. And, that's what I've been told out of the people down at Florida is they want Mertz to be able to move the chains on 3rd and 7, 2nd down and 5. And this should be a much improved Florida team, but with that schedule, I don't know that they get any higher than say 7-5 this year.
I don't, the Florida, we talk with, the Gator Bait people, Buddy Martin, Franz Beard, and Ben Troop a lot. They will go crazy if that happens. When you know what I'm saying? When you start looking at, it's like a business that if you have a huge payroll and you're paying out all these checks and the ROI is that low, no way that can I thought Billy Napier would be a great fit at Florida, but maybe you got to have the free spirit, like Steve Spurrier personality just works better. I mean, it's been, from 1933 to 1991, do the math. That's 58 years before they ever won the SEC in football. Now they won it in 84, but it was vacated, and they won it in 90. Really, the first year Spurrier was there, but they had to vacate that. But maybe you just can't have Gunnery Sergeant Hartman as your coach down there, a real tough disciplinarian. I don't know. But, Jake, tell people, I appreciate you being on with us. We made it through this storm, the first one of the day. I don't know. You'll probably be getting them in Jackson.
Oh, yeah.
I've driven through there. So you get the same weather. It's just a little bit lower. But you got a great show. I love the speed of it, a lot of energy, and you cover Mississippi like kudzu and cotton. I love it. How can they follow you?
I appreciate it, Rob, and I appreciate you having me today. Sorry we've had the hiccups on the weather, but like you said, it's going to be one of those days here in the Deep South. Find me on Twitter at Jake Wim. We'll be on the air today, typically 3 to 6. We're on 2 to 5 today for a special show, but you can always stream that show on the zone1059.com. That's the zone1059.com, and I'm on Twitter at Jake Wim. All information there.
Hey, thank you so much, man. Be careful today.
Hey, thanks so much. Have a great Friday.
All right, we will. Man, what a wild one. Man, these storms, I'm telling you, it got dark out here. Those of you listening across the river, David and Tom, Uncle Herman, you better get ready because as my grandmother from Middle Tennessee, Hohenwald, used to say, there's a storm a-coming. Storm. I guess that's STARM. I tell you one thing. His college baseball season, it's if you don't have a point guard in basketball, you struggle. If you don't have a quarterback in football, you struggle. If you don't have a pitcher in baseball and a deep bullpen, it's scary. It's Russian roulette. It's just, you're winging it every day. But you come into college baseball for 3 years versus going straight to the minors. You're not going to be staying in a Motel 6, eating, fast food through a drive-in window every night on the road. That's what's drawing players to college baseball. But as Jake Wimberly just said from 105.9 ESPN in Jackson, Mississippi, the number one player in Mississippi out of Jackson Prep has already announced that he's going to go and make the short trip to Baton Rouge and play at LSU. Hell, as great as Ole Miss and Mississippi State are, back-to-back national champions, keep in mind that LSU has won 6 national championships, 5 of them in the 90s with Skip Bertman, and then Paul Maneri won in his 13 years. But when you raise the bar as high as LSU has done, you better be ready and accepting of the burden that comes with that, because once your school goes to the national championship game or the College World Series and plays for a national championship, or once you go to the Final Four, once your mind expands from its original size and goes way up here, it will never revert back to that small size again. Not comfortably, for sure. That's what happens to fans. Jason Caldwell is with us right now, inside the Auburn Tigers 24/7 Sports. Jason, I talked about it in the previous segment. The closed for business sign that had been in the window at Auburn football offices for the last 3 years is gone. I'm looking at your website. When I go to autigers.com, inside the Auburn Tigers, my God, the humanity of it all, that great quote. You are putting out so much content. I mean, it's like a crawl underneath. So thank you for doing that. But there's a reason for that. The number of 4- and 5-star guys that are committed to Auburn's rivals that basically said, Auburn, I never really heard from them. Now they're getting back on campus. Freeze warning in full effect. You are a truth broker. You never said during the harsh, and I kept trying to get you, hopefully he's going to say something really fine. You were like, I just don't see it. You held your ground, and you were right. Now it's a 180 difference, isn't it?
It is. Yeah, it's completely different. You're right. All you have to do is listen to what players tell you, and when players tell you, look, it's a completely different feeling. I'm getting a whole lot more attention than I did. I mean, we talked to Ron Williams when he last visited. He's going to be a 5-star in the 2025 class. Dad played at Auburn for a couple of years before, finishing somewhere else, but still loves Auburn. The kid visited last year for the Penn State game. I think probably a total of about maybe 4 minutes. Somebody talked to him. He said maybe that much. And he's, in my opinion, I think he's the best player in the country in 2025. He's been back on campus now a few times. Plans to be back on campus next week and then back for the spring game again. And this is a guy that's a wide receiver in 2025, and I think is a dynamite player. He's just one of the guys that you talk to that say, look, it's a huge difference. And it's a lot of the difference is that they're hearing from the head coach, and they didn't hear from the head coach. They didn't talk to the head coach. Maybe occasionally. Hugh Freeze's talked to these guys, most of them at least every other day. And that's what you got to have. That's what it takes to win at this level is you got to have relationships. You got to build those things, and you got to get recruits, and you got to get on campus. And they're doing that so far. That's one step of it, but it's a big step. And so far they're doing the right thing.
Well, you look at last year, there were 6 or 7 5-stars and 22 4-stars in Alabama. Already looking ahead to this coming year, class of 24, I think there's 22 4-stars and 2 or 3 5-stars. And then you're looking out into 25. You better be looking out into 25. If you don't have any contact with the guys in 8th and 9th grade, it's hard to build a relationship with them their senior year. They've already imprinted on other schools. But offensive line recruiting, nobody's done a better job of laying out the case for come to Auburn, you'll get immediate playing time. If you come in here and do what we expect out of you. They only had 7 offensive linemen until they went and got 9 in the portal or recruiting. How many are on the field right now in spring practice? Injured or whatever, but how many scholarship offensive linemen do they have?
Yeah, I think there's 15 now with the 7 they brought in. I think that's the number, maybe 14. So it's somewhere around in there. So they have 7 on campus new offensive linemen this spring. When you look at Dylan Wade coming in from Tulsa, Gunnar Britton from West Kentucky, Avery Jones from Eastern Carolina. So that's 3 transfers. Then you have Isaiah Miller that is here. That's a junior college edition. So that makes 4. Then Braden Joyner, Connor Liu, and just get my mind just went blank, but offensive tackle from Tampa. That's 3 high schools. So you have 7 newcomers on campus for the spring on the offensive line. And so huge deal. And hey, almost as important on defense. I started doing a story yesterday about playing rotation on the defensive line and playing more guys, doing those things. And you think about the newcomers on the defensive front, when you count that edge position, when you think about there's 3 new edge guys, including a transfer, McAllister from Vanderbilt. And you look inside and you have Justin Rogers, Lawrence Johnson, Mosiah Nasili Kite. You have those 3 transfer newcomers. Then you have Steven Johnson, that's a transfer newcomer in from the high school ranks, and you have a junior college player coming in this summer. You're talking about on the lines of scrimmage, about 16 new players that'll be with this team next year.
Yeah, hold those thoughts because I want to talk about Keldrick Falk out of Highland Home right after this with Jason Caldwell on Sidelines. All right, let me say something real quick before we go back to Jason Caldwell about Eleanor Maynard, Hobson Realty. Go to the website, sidelines.live. Check out the hyperlink. She is top 5% in 2022 out of 4,600 realtors in the Memphis market. If you're looking to buy or sell a home in Memphis, or you're getting relocated, you and your family, because of a job or whatever, to Memphis, you want to retire there, whatever, find that website of ours, www.sidelines.live. Eleanor Maynard and her team, it's A to Z. It's a turnkey operation. They'll help you with every part of buying or selling a home, finding a home. She is our realtor. We're going to bring her on the show next week, but give her a call, Eleanor Maynard. Jason, Keldrick Falk was a guy that Auburn flipped late from Florida State, from Highland Home, which is where the Hyundai plant is on the south side of Montgomery on 65. Everybody goes by there. Too bad they didn't make any effort to go to Park Crossing to get Quinshon Judkins. I think it's almost like it gives you PTSD as a fan, and in your position, an analyst and writer who studies this. How can you not even make any effort? It's mind-boggling. And then Hugh Freeze is that he loves engaging with people. I mean, the previous guy was like having an introvert as a sales manager.
Yeah, I think it's just, you're right. It's just completely different. And you got a guy that has been in this league, he's been at Ole Miss, understands the importance of it, but he's also a guy that understands the culture of living in the South. I think that's something a big deal too. And it's just not a prerequisite, but I think when John Cohen talked about it, when I talked about it last year, I talked about the word fit. Fit is very important. It just is. And fit's not important at a lot of places, but it is at Auburn. And when you have to understand that it's about people, and that old cliche, Auburn family, all those things, people think it's a cliche until you get inside the building. And you ask John Cohen, he might have snickered about it before he got here, but you feel it when you get here, and you understand it when you get here. And I think it's part of it. But you're right. Keldrick Falk was a guy that I said from the get-go that I thought Auburn would wind up at Auburn, but he would not have wound up at Auburn without a coaching change. It would not have happened. I mean, he was committed to Florida State, but I always thought this is a guy that fits at Auburn. There's guys in this class I think that fit at Auburn now. We'll see if it happens, if it winds up. But I feel like they have a much better chance now than they would have, obviously, the last couple of years. So it's, and getting to Keltrick, he's 6'6", 275, playing a jack linebacker position. I mean, he's a massive human being. This is a guy that's as from a size standpoint, is built like one of these guys that you see that are first rounders in a few years. Now, can he continue to develop to get to that point? He's going to have a chance. But right now, he's a guy that's getting first team reps and has only been on campus for 3 months. And part of that was recovering from a wrist surgery that he had following senior year. So he hasn't had a chance to go through the weight room and do all the things that should help him as he continues to develop.
Yeah, here's an interesting point made by Curtis Lowe in Mountain Brook. He said, I have a couple of friends who were invited walk-ons at Auburn. Said Coach Hugh Freeze spends significant time with them and their families. One father said to me, if they're taking this good a care of us as preferred walk-ons, I can't imagine what kind of attention the more highly rated players are. These are the likely scout team quarterback and a linebacker. That right there is impressive. It's like, you know what I mean, Jason? Watch how people treat other people who can't do a thing for them. Somebody that's cleaning the bathrooms or cleaning the streets or whatever, go up and say, you're doing a damn good job. That goes a long way. I'm from Memphis. I followed him for 20 plus years. I know a lot of people independent of one another that know him. He's in heaven is what they're saying about what he loves at Auburn. But that right there is a great endorsement, isn't it?
It is. And you're right. I mean, I think it's the word is welcoming. I wrote a story this week from last Friday that they had, the Auburn football letterman back on campus, and there was more than 200. And that's not letterman and families.
Yeah.
That's the letterman, and then their families. There's probably 500 or 600 people that came to practice. They had a dinner. The entire staff went over and talked to those men and their families when they got done for a little bit. Just hung out with them. That's things again that haven't happened, and that's going back to Gus Malzahn. They didn't do a good enough job. They didn't do a good enough job of making those people feel like they were a part of the program, and that's something that Hugh Freeze wants to change. So it's not just recruiting; it's been rebuilding the very fabric of a program that's had to happen, and he's starting to do some of those things that are a long time overdue and needed to be done. And again, that's another maybe step in the right direction that a lot of people don't realize.
Yeah, Jason, I always give you credit where it's due. And 2 years ago, you said the state of Alabama was where the state of Georgia was 10 years ago. They're putting out around 250 Division I football players a year now. Alabama is around 150, I think. Where does Auburn stand among the top 15 players in the state? Last year, when we would ask you that question, the numbers were dismal. Where are they this year?
Yeah, before we do that, I'll tell you this. We had Cooper Patagna on our podcast recently, and he is one of our guys that does recruiting and scouting for our 24/7 network. He has worked at Oregon. He has worked at a couple of major schools in recruiting departments. He said right now that Auburn is basically neck and neck with the state of California. Alabama is neck and neck with the state of California in terms of producing talent. Just the numbers of player, and that is with 1/10 of the population, probably somewhere around in there.
Yeah, about 1/8.
Yeah, but that tells you the difference. I just went and looked, and we just did our first really rankings update in the 24 class, and there are 4 5-stars. That's out of 32. So basically, of the top 32 players right now that they feel like in the country, 4 of those kids are from Alabama, and then they haven't really updated all the way through in terms of the 4-star rankings. But there's 17 others that are 4-star prospects. I think they're going to be more. And so you're talking about right now there are 21 4- and 5-star prospects in the state of Alabama. And when you look at that, you look at the guys who have been on campus, I'll say since January. So you go say, okay, and a couple of those guys are committed to elsewhere, but of the guys that have already been on campus since January, I'm going to do a count while we're here on the air, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. There's 14 of them. So 2/3 of those guys have already been on campus. And Auburn has 1 committed, 2 committed, and already have a chance to probably, I would say a strong chance to get at least a couple more of those guys here very soon. So you're already ahead of the game of where you were at the end of the cycle last year until Hugh Freeze and his staff came on.
Any announcements may happen today or tomorrow on the recruiting front that you want to make us aware of? And again, let people know. We always do this toward the end. I want to make sure they get it in. How and where can they follow you? We're not through yet. I hope we got a few more questions. I got a lot of them from the phone, but I want to get that in because there could be some news today, but I want you to qualify that.
Yeah, Jamarian Burnett, running back from Andalusia, is a guy that could make a decision today. I think Auburn's in pretty good spot for him. We'll see what he winds up doing, but this is a 6'1", 225, 230-pound running back that has a Derrick Henry type look to him. Obviously, Derrick Henry's a completely different guy because he's when people talk once in a generational, he's pretty once in a generational. But
yeah,
Jamarian Burnett has that big body, physical style that Auburn hasn't had in quite a while, to be quite honest. And so I think Auburn is in pretty good shape for him. Wouldn't be surprised if something happened for him today. So that's probably the one. But yeah, we'll have full coverage throughout the day. Recruits on campus today, including 5-star Jamonte Waller from Mississippi is one of the many guys that'll be there today. Cam Coleman, 5-star wide receiver from Central Phoenix City, was there yesterday. So you can read all those updates at aetigers.com, auburnundercover.com. Get you there, and follow me on Twitter at ITATJason.
Jason, I mean, it is just the information coming out. It's incredible. Getting another one here from Levi Helm about the baseball game last night. You know, I'm watching that. I'm watching Sweet 16 in another room because my wife was watching The Blacklist with James Spader on Netflix. 1,000 episodes. I don't think it ever stops, but wow, you win in 11 innings. This team, I mean, got swept at Arkansas last week, and Coach Thompson's on our shows with us most Saturdays, and he was in Fayetteville. But it was a weird weekend across the board in the SEC. Joseph Gonzalez, we know he's going to be out for an extended period of time, but they found excuses to win. What do you draw from that? It's early in the season.
Yeah, I think obviously you're going to have some guys step up, and for the second week in a row, Will Cannon stepped up on the mound. He did last night for this team, and finally getting healthier a little bit, at least from a position player standpoint. We saw Bobby Pierce DH last night. We saw Cooper McMurray come off the bench and get a big single to keep that inning going. So that was a couple of big ones, and I think as you can get healthier, transition to get Bobby Pierce back on the field somewhere, potentially, then how Cooper McMurray back on the field somewhere potentially, then it's going to give you a little bit more firepower. That's really the thing. Last weekend in Arkansas, it was more the offensive issues, even though the pitching, they're kind of having to piece it together. But this team just battles. They battled last night. 3 runs with 2 outs and nobody on in the bottom of the 9th to tie it. And then get a walk in the 11th inning to win it. And, right now your goal is it doesn't change. Right now you had a sweep, but now you got to start making it up for some of those. And that means you got to take care of business at home. And so that's where it starts. You got Florida next weekend. So there's no off days. I mean, this is a Georgia team now. The Auburn and Georgia both were swept. There are 5 teams that got swept last weekend, but this is not a bad Georgia baseball team. People don't get confused with football mentality when you think about baseball, softball. You can be really good in those sports and look up and be 2-7 to start the year. because of the league you play in. I mean, football league is good, but you only play one game. Baseball and softball it's just a brutal grind, and this league is much deeper in baseball and softball than it even is in football, and it's just the way it is. That's the challenges, and this got 2 more games against Georgia, and it's going to be a battle to the end to try to get another win.
Yeah, and again, just every game, these midweek games, it's tough, especially if your pitching staff is banged up. Who are you going to throw? Your 6, 7, and 8. You don't want to lose them, and a lot of times you're playing in-state schools. But how many times if teams that have been below 500 in the SEC baseball made it to the World Series? That's a pretty long list, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. You just got. I mean, last year Ole Miss was the last team in. And they win a national championship. And much of the reason was that they figured it out during the year. And from a pitching standpoint, they moved their closer to a starter, and they got a freshman that all of a sudden stepped up and became a guy. Will Cannon is a guy that was a closer for Auburn. Heck, he may wind up being a starter for this team. Zach Crotchfeld's a true freshman that starting to kind of get a little bit. He'll get a chance on Saturday. Drew Nelson pitched really well the last 2 times out. You start to get some of those pieces a little bit. And they need a guy like Chase Olsen, a sophomore that's 96, 97 off the mound. They need a guy like that to step it up, and they can get some of those pieces. There's still enough arm talent on this team to make some noise as they continue to get healthy at the plate. But they got to have a couple of those guys step up and get them deep into some games. Yeah, and here's I think it's interesting when you now switching to basketball the last couple of minutes. Auburn, you were right. That team, people will appreciate it more, I think, as in the offseason. You got one team left in the SEC now. Arkansas, Tennessee went out last night. But all considered, you thought Auburn would be 10-8. They finished 10-8. That second half against Houston, what was the takeaway from that? And what does Auburn need to recruit to fix that? Yeah, I thought it was a little bit different because it wasn't just a total lack of shooting. Now, they didn't shoot it very well, but a lot of that was because it became a really physical game, and they said, look, we're going to make you finish at the free throw line. And, man, I hate it for a guy like Janai Broome, who had actually gotten a lot better shooting free throws, to have a game like that in that situation. He missed 10 free throws by himself. You lose by 17, but it changed the whole complexion of a basketball game because you had Houston on the ropes. Their 2 best players were in foul trouble. Mm-hmm. You make some free throws, and it changes the way that game's played. Once they were able to extend the lead a little bit, it opened the door and it took some of the pressure off them. So it was kind of a microcosm of the season, though. You played really good at spurts, did some really good things, but couldn't do it for a complete game. And that was the difference for this Auburn team. And now you look and you go, what are the issues? And the 2 issues cropped up. It was shooting, and especially perimeter shooting, and rebounding. Those are the 2 things for me that have to be addressed. And that means bigger, more physical guard that can score, preferably a guy that can shoot the ball from the perimeter.
Yeah.
And then
Jason, we got about 45
true rebounder.
seconds.
I think I need a true rebounder for this team to get more possessions, to get the ball back to the offense.
Yeah, because Janai Broome, and we don't know who all's coming back. So tell people how they can follow you. We got about 30 seconds before the break, because that stuff changes every hour of every day, and you update it like nobody else, you and your team. Yep. We'll have full coverage as much as possible on the transfer portal and basketball, recruiting, football, everything else. So check us out, auburnundercover.com, autigers.com. Follow me on Twitter at ITATJason. Yeah, and do that VIP thing, folks. Cost is only an issue in the absence of any added value. Do you want somebody's full attention or just 75% of it? Get the full attention. You will. It's addictive. Jason, thank you so much. Have a great weekend. Look forward to reading everything you say and write, you and Mark Murphy and the whole team down there. Be back right after this for hour number 2.
Hewitt & Dunn, just coming to let you know about our new collection of boots. It's going to be our dress boots. They're the horsepower collection. And they're genuine exotic leathers and really comfortable. Comes in all different sizes and patterns, so come check them out.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
Hey, we are back here for hour number 2 on Sidelines. And again, I want to say something about Eleanor Maynard, Hobson Realty. Go to the website, www.sidelines.live. You'll see the Hobson Realty hyperlink. You heard president of the University of Memphis yesterday on the show, Dr. Bill Hardgrave. He moved to Memphis a year ago. He used Hobson Realty, had a great experience with them. And I'm telling you what, Eleanor Maynard and her team will help you if you are in Memphis. You live in Memphis, looking to buy your home or sell your current home. Call Eleanor Maynard. She's on the website. If you are relocating to Memphis, you're going to move here, okay? You like barbecue, you like the blues, you want to live down on the river, go to the website. You'll get all the contact information for Eleanor Maynard at Hobson Realty. 12 years. Look, she is a third-generation Hobson realtor, top 5% out of 4,600 realtors in the Memphis market. So make it easy on yourself, because otherwise, if you try to do it by yourself, it's like trying to do everything at a restaurant. You can't do it. You got to have a team. Get Eleanor Maynard to be your quarterback. Bo Carter checks in with us right now out in the Metroplex of Dallas-Fort Worth. Billy Ray Valentine, William Halliday will join us in hour number 2 shortly, as Mildred here gives me my special coffee brew in the morning. Chris Farley and I use the same brew. And Bo, we've had some interesting, I got called out by one of our listeners, Grandma Moses from Moultrie, Georgia, this morning. Said I wasn't giving due respect to the Big East compared to the SEC. And I'm like, contraire, Granny. The Big East, Marquette would have made 4 teams, but the Big East plays really good basketball. And UConn took Arkansas apart last night. And that's a good Arkansas team. UConn has not lost a game outside of their conference this entire season. That's pretty strong. And then Tennessee went down to Florida Atlantic, the Owls. Woo, 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 woo. That is the barred owl call, not to be confused with the great horned owl, which is the larger bird. We've got one in the yard over here at the farm in Parkin, the Cherry Farm, on the 5 acres. And at dusk last summer, it was a giant. It would be down on the ground. It looked like a fox or a big dog. And they are there. But Florida Atlantic, you watched them play in the Conference USA tournament. And we pointed out they beat UAB 3 times this year. I mean, going into the thing, Bo, kind of, I'm giving you a lot to unpack, but they only had 1 victory the entire season, or played 1 team the entire season that made it to the field of 68. What's the lesson learned there about filling out your brackets?
That's right.
Not yours specifically.
Yeah. I know. I did not do a bracket. Well, I wrote one out just to keep by the old television this year. We're still using the old-fashioned television like older folks do. But no, Florida Atlantic's a very, very athletic team. Man, they've got 2 or 3 guards that can run the floor, a couple of leapers, the perfect match for NCAA. And their coach, Dusty May, was a manager for Bob Knight for 4 years at Indiana. Obviously sat next to Coach Knight and learned a lot about basketball over those years. So they've become the new Cinderella in the grade 8 here.
Well, you look at 32 leagues in basketball. We went last year, there were 351 schools. This year, there's 363 that are eligible to qualify for March Madness. And I think the NCAA, somebody has a trademark copyright on that March Madness, don't they? Is that you? Who came up with that?
A guy, I think, a writer in Illinois started talking about their state tournament about 40 or 50 years ago. And then finally the NCAA about 15, 20 years ago went and got you have to use the registered trademark thing that the Turner family is our legal counsel is used to you reporting there or whatever. But Rob, getting back to the Big East too, man, there may not be a better basketball conference outside maybe the SEC or Big 12 in the country, man. And the West Coast with Gonzaga, man, and St. Mary's. Wow. There's so many tough conferences. And the West Coast and Big East are made for basketball, so they're exploring their opportunities, I guess.
They are, and I'm trying to think of that Illinois sports writer. Could it perhaps have been an unassuming writer from a small Illinois town of Metropolis, Clark Kent?
Yes,
thought about that.
He flew down
an Illinois sports writer. Has thought about that, but again, Gonzaga. And we talked about this yesterday and with Coach John Brady earlier in the week. I felt like Gonzaga is more relaxed being in that underdog role. I don't think they really like being, carried around, by the serfs. I don't think they like that number 1 seed thing. I think this is where they're comfortable. And they took out UCLA last night. Mick Cronin's got a hell of a team out there.
Came down from 13 points down and had a 10-point lead with about 3 minutes left and started missing free throws. So that's pardon me, that's another recipe for disaster in that scenario, because boy, if you don't make your free throws in the NCAA tournament, Rob, you're doomed. I knew somebody was 22 of 22 the other night. I'm trying to remember, was that I think Creighton in its win was 22 out of 22 from the free throw line. Talk about pressure packed Big East free throw shooting there.
Well, if you look at the competition, what I saw, Florida Atlantic taking out Tennessee. Look at UConn taking out Arkansas. I like Jay Wright is so good on TV, but he's better he's great, but we got to get him back in coaching.
He really is. Yeah.
That's a travesty. He's a young guy, man. But he talked about Newell. How tall is Newell? 5'2", 5'4"?
Yeah, 5'9", 5'10", I think.
He's only 5'10". He looks a lot smaller than that.
Yeah, listed at 5'10".
But that's like having a sapling among the sequoias or the redwoods. But, wow, only 2 players stayed on that Kansas State team when the new Jerome Ping came in. He must have cracked the whip, gotten after some people. All non-hackers will be weeded out of my beloved core if you survive. If you leave this practice session, you will be a wildcat praying for games. That was awesome. And that was his childhood friend, that guy he threw the ball to over in the corner to get to lock up the win. But one of my favorite coaches, Tom Izzo. I don't know. I love him because he's old school. He does it his way. He's a Frank Sinatra guy. But Kansas State, man, that's their first Elite Eight. That's nice to be able to say that since 2018. The folks in Manhattan, they got to be having fun because the folks in Lawrence have already, washed, folded, and put their basketball stuff away, their uniforms. but they're practicing. But man, going up there in Madison Square Garden, playing that game, that had to be a lot of fun for everybody.
It really was. And you hit the nail on the head. Kansas State's always been the younger brother of, the understudy of Kansas. And, the last, 30 years when Bill Snyder took over, they suddenly became the football power and won the Big 12 football championship over TCU this year. So this has been one of K-State's greatest 6 months in school history. And you got to love Jerome Tang. He was going nuts after the ball game. Plus, I saw a couple of comments this morning. I think Tom Izzo got ripped a little bit. He was mad. He's like I said, he's old school, real disappointed. He said they were lucky to beat us.
Well,
I've heard coaches say that before.
Yeah, but Newell had 19 points or 19 assists and 22 points.
Amazing.
And that's what Jay Wright was talking about. He goes, I've coached a few New York City guards in my day. He said, I'll tell you what that conversation was probably like. You shoot this. He goes, no, I'm going to try this. I'm going to do that. I mean, you got to love the competitiveness of these guys in the tournament. Tom Izzo will have Michigan State back. There's the Big Ten basketball race, and then there's Michigan State. They're like a league amongst themselves in all that because Tom Izzo gets every ounce of talent. He'll squeeze it out of his players. But Gonzaga, Timmy, I mean, that guy, is he, what year is he?
Senior tech. I think he has a COVID year left, but he wouldn't finish up. Amazing guy.
But you do think he can play in the NBA, don't you?
Yes, he's a Richardson, Texas kid, which you don't hear a lot of stuff about that area. His dad played at Eddie. They really wanted to get him, but boy, that guy, his arms. He's got that great arm length, and just all of a sudden he shoots that one-handed jump shot, Rob, like the 1980s NBA guys. So you got to work on his free throws. He missed 2 last night down the stretch, and 64%. But he does everything. The guy's got some amazing moves.
Well, I mean, I just last year with Chet Holmgren and Timmy and some other players on that team. I mean, they've been getting some big-time players. A couple of years ago, they had the number 1 or 2 player in the country out of Minneapolis, St. Paul at Gonzaga. But, wow, they're in the Elite Eight, and I'm sitting here looking at these matchups. I mean, tonight's games, just looking here, at the schedule, and you think about Houston and Miami, Alabama and San Diego State. There's just so many great matchups. And, last night, UCLA, Gonzaga, Tennessee, Florida Atlantic. I mean, Gonzaga and Florida Atlantic, you wouldn't call them Power 5. You wouldn't call them Group of 5. Mm-hmm. They're just, other conferences. It's like, but Gonzaga's a household name. Florida Atlantic is not. I just wonder how many people, and yesterday on the show, Matt Dean and John Hartwell, the AD angle, and they both talked about how Kevin White has to be just walking on, air, that his son Danny had Tennessee in the Sweet 16, and his other son, I can't remember his name, Clarence or whatever, but at Florida Atlantic. That's right. In the Sweet 16. I mean, are they the first family of athletic directors? One's ever.
That's right. That's right. Well, and then Conference USA, Rob, since Louisville and Memphis left, they've really been bereft of, great basketball. UAB's kind of risen a few times in Middle Tennessee and a few of those, but they've got North Texas and UAB, which beat Vandy in Nashville the other night, or in the semifinals for the NIT. Charlotte won the CBI the other night, and then you've got Florida Atlantic. This might be their best basketball year in 15 years. They've really, they're a traditional one bid league, but they're really kind of, flexing their muscles this year.
Yeah, but again, you talk about it. The West Coast, the East Coast are built for basketball. Mm-hmm. I mean, nobody ever comes out with a list of the dandy dozen high school football prospects in Brooklyn and Queens and Manhattan. But in basketball, That's street basketball, you know, the way they play it. Those are tough kids, and they do well wherever they go, you know, because they're tough. Right there. You got a lot of talented teams that aren't tough. You know, people like to do what's convenient. They're not always prone to do what's necessary to win a championship. They talk about it, but a guy like Tom Izzo, if you play for him, there's a standard. If you play for Mick Cronin, there is a standard. Let's switch to Texas. Texas plays Xavier tonight. I mean, that's got to be confusing, you know, down at the general store and slap out Alabama. Xavier. No, it's Xavier. Do what? Pine Level, Alabama. They had to come it down there south of Montgomery, near the tiny town of Mount Olive. I'll buy you a steamer pack of crystals, Bo, if you can tell me what famous country music singer was born in the tiny town of Mount Olive, Alabama, and spent his time at Sunday church with his family as his mother played the organ for the choir. And he went on to be one hell of a singer and died way too young at the age of 29 near Oak Hill, West Virginia, with his traveling band called the Cowboy Drifters. The Drifting Cowboy Band.
Hank Williams, or no? I didn't know.
Yep, it was. And my brother-in-law's uncle worked at the gas station where Hank Williams and the Drifting Cowboys band pulled into. And he went out there, and the car was left there. And he had the holster and I believe the pistol of Hank Williams. He held on to that, and I think he gave it back to a museum or something. But it's a really wild story. But anyway, Xavier in Texas. Dave Cody keeps asking, you know, what are they going to do? You know, Terry, is he going to get it? Is Cal looking to go anywhere? Or are they just saying, let's just focus on playing Xavier?
That's good. But Dig Vitale came out in a good rant yesterday and said, go ahead and hire Rodney Terry. The guy's done everything for him this year, which he's got a great point. And, you know, he had a tough go. Stetson's a tough place to coach, as we talked about, and John Brady and several people know. But he did okay over there, and he's been a rock over at Texas during all this time of controversy or whatever too. But and I'm thinking, Rob, Texas enrollment's like 60,000. Xavier's probably what, 8,000 maybe if you count the grad school, I guess. So it's the David versus Goliath, literally.
Oh yeah, you know, my daughter and her husband are down in Jamaica for a month on business. Right. Anyway, no, but they're working on production and doing a documentary. How about this text? We found the Whalers, Bob Marley and the Whalers, the family. Hung out with them in Trenchtown yesterday. We're in. Big things coming. Hallie and Brooks, congratulations. That is, I in college owned every CD, or I didn't have CDs, cassette tape or record that Bob Marley and the Whalers, you know, Jimmy Cliff. Wow. Trenchtown. That's Hallie, y'all be careful down there, man. They smoke pipes down there, man. Be careful.
That's right.
But anyway, but we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to have the intern, Billy Ray Valentine, William Halliday will check in with us. We're also going to start adding, we have another intern who is over in Tuscaloosa. Need to get him on. We'll be right back with more.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
Hey, man, we're in Trenchtown with Bo Carter out in the Metroplex, Dallas. Pull that up again, Bo. Let me see that.
The Dallas Morning News, Rob. If I can get it over there.
Wow, Sports Day.
The
And it
newspaper.
says, yeah, wow. Okay, a newspaper.
That's right. Let's show it to William.
Newspaper. All you youngins out there. Newspaper. It's awesome. You hold it in your hand, you read it. And as a guy that told me on 3 of the roughest days of my life, an insurance training seminar, the guy in a jumpsuit and thick birth control glasses got up there on day 1 and said, insurance is important. And for the next 24 hours, we will cover this book from start to finish. Now, I want you to highlight and double underline every other word. You're like, ah! Come on, some of this stuff isn't important, is it?
Mm-mm.
But anyway, we've got Bo. I like what you just said, and I'm trying to bring the marvel of technology here, Billy Ray Valentine. William Halliday is joining us right now on a Greyhound bus heading to the coast of Florida for a weekend of speckled trout, snapper, and red fishing. I don't know what he's doing, but he has joined us. And March Madness, man, what we're seeing right now, it's getting to be it's a war of attrition. And Bo, you and I have been talking about it. Let's get William's thoughts. You know, there's the Power Five, there's the Group of Five, but there's 32 conferences. Is there anything where it's more wide open, especially with these smaller schools? The guys are staying there for 4 or 5 years. I mean, some of these guys are like people that, you know, never leave their parents' house and live in the basement when they're in their 40s, you know, and there are people like that out there. But are you surprised that, you know, Florida Atlantic, Gonzaga, you shouldn't be surprised about them, but you've got Xavier, you know, UConn's got 4 national championships. They're tied for the 6th most of anybody. But are you surprised when some of the schools that aren't the biggest names do so well in basketball, William? Or are you kind of used to this because that's kind of what you've seen in your high school and your early college career? William, William, can you hear us? You may have it on mute. Let's see, got the metal plate in your head, must not be turned the right direction. I don't know, William, if you can hear us, you may have us on mute, but I'm not surprised. And I think that I can't wait to see the ratings, the TV numbers. Mm. Have we seen anything yet? Williams, I don't know. I have not seen them. I don't know when we will see them, but you've got a lot of people, Bo, that are it's very compelling to watch on TV. And then you've got people, you know, we already had the Duke narrative that was being pushed, you know, about, it was all the officials, you know, Seth Greenberg. Seth, you're a hell of a coach. I love you as an analyst. I don't know you, but, you know, again, as people on this show all week long have said, that's what you get night in and night out in the SEC. You go on the road, the home team may shoot 38 free throws and you shoot 14. And a damn thing you can do about it. So you're really wasting your time whining about officiating. William, jump in freely. The unfasten your seatbelt signs are off. You're free to smoke and walk around the cabin whenever you're ready.
Okay, sorry. What's the topic?
We're talking about women's field hockey in Outer Mongolia and Upper Slobovia. We're just talking about how many not so big names in basketball. You know, in football, you've only got 131 teams that can make the CFP playoffs. Basketball, it's up to 363. I mean, are you surprised that so many not such big names are doing so well? They took out Tennessee last night. Now, Florida Atlantic, not a household name. Now, UConn beating Arkansas, you know, they've got the 6th most number of national championships of any team in college basketball history. They have 4. I don't know which one was a bigger shocker to you, or were you not shocked at all?
I was not shocked at Tennessee losing to FAU because they can't shoot to save their lives some games. So I'm not shocked by that, especially in the second half. But I was surprised that UConn put a beating on Arkansas by like 20. I was checking on that game. It was just really surprising. But I did have UConn going to my Final Four in my bracket. But besides the point, I didn't see them crushing them that bad. But Gonzaga, that was a big game. The UCLA game, 2 big shots that were made. It was crazy to see that. I think they're a smaller team, but they have Drew Timme, and that's a big name. I think that will get some recognition. But
yeah, Timme. Would you put Timme on your first team All-American?
Absolutely, I would. He's got some really good post moves and really good footwork that he's kept around for the past 4 years.
He looks good as the 34-year-old sophomore or senior. He's good. He's excellent. I mean, but again, when guys are that good and they start every game of their career, you think that they've been there forever. But I look at my Final Four. I have Alabama, Kansas State. I'm alive there. Miami. I'm still technically alive. They hadn't played Houston yet. And I had Kansas and Gonzaga playing with Kansas going to the Final Four. So Gonzaga, I got Gonzaga in the Elite 8. So doing pretty well. But Bo, you get out there and William, when you hear what Bo's saying, he got to watch all those Conference USA tournaments. That is the canary in the coal mine, I believe, Bo. The eyes and the ears, the boots on the ground with folks like you, True Grit journalists, who get to go see all these games. And again, you're not surprised at all by Florida Atlantic. You had Florida Atlantic in your Final Four, didn't you?
No, not that brilliant. I didn't have Fairleigh Dickinson upsetting Purdue. But it was, no, you're right. We were talking about if they go to 90 teams in the NCAA tournament, which in all probability, they had the NCAA new president, Charlie Baker, on. He said he's going to take the recommendation of the basketball committee here about 2 months after they meet. But boy, I think that just adds to the excitement. And a couple of people said if you put every team in the tournament, it just takes four rounds, really, which is interesting. Like William knows, the Alabama State High School basketball, they had 42 games in Jacksonville, Alabama, a couple of years ago for the Northeast Region tournament. So it's really the more basketball, the better.
Yeah. I mean, it really is. William, you got college football, basketball, baseball. It's all overlapping right now. But are you able to and this is just I think it's a false narrative. I got 4 kids from 22 to 34. You can sit still. You watch a lot of basketball, don't you? You and your friends, are y'all watching March Madness, even though the Auburn Tigers are out? I love how these people up in the Northeast, Auburn or Auburn. I'm like, it's Auburn. As Coach Dye would say, it's just Pat Dye for Kia of Auburn. How do you spell that one? But anyway, are you watching a lot of these games, William?
I am. I don't know about my friends, but I will say that once the Auburn game, the first few rounds, some of my friends were keeping up with their bracket and they would watch it on their phones. And they do that if they were stuck in a class or something that they didn't want to necessarily listen to. They'd probably pull out their phone and just watch some of the games. But I'm not so sure about the Sweet 16 right now. They'll probably come back around the Final Four and watch those games.
Yeah, and I love this time of year. But what, Bo, when the announcers, golly, Legacy Arena had Bill Rafferty, Jim Nance, Grant Hill, Tracy Wolfson down on courtside, who was absolutely one of my favorite. And you follow her on Twitter, she's got 3 boys, so she probably watches a lot of sports. Not too much of watching the Hallmark Channel around there. William, let me just forewarn you, when you get married one day, if your wife starts wanting to watch the Hallmark Channel, that's why you have multiple TVs in the house, or you put earplugs in. The Hallmark Channel, it's the same storyline in every one. It's always snowing. The snow's never dirty. There's no ice or whatever. Oh God. I mean, give me 11.29 at the county penal farm, hard labor. I'll take that versus watching the Hallmark Channel. But when you look at the way basketball is presented, that crew that did the games in Birmingham, that's as good as it gets. Jim Nance is talking about, and William and Bo, y'all follow. He does it all. The NFL, the Masters, college basketball. They want him doing everything. He seems like a young guy to me, but who's now, I don't know if y'all are aware of this, Maury Gaston from down in Birmingham, native of the Marble City, Sylacauga, sent me some stuff about the World War II Foundation. Jim Nance and Gary Sinise and others are narrating some absolutely just incredible documentaries about World War II. So Jim Nance is the Renaissance man. He does it all. All right, here's the test for you, Billy Ray. And Bo is going to grade you on this. You're writing a story today for the afternoon newspaper, okay? The Trenchtown Gazette is what we're going to call it. What's your lead going into tonight from what happened last night and what you think is going to happen tonight? And what would your story be? Because having to think quickly on your feet will make or break you as a writer. That's just what I think.
So, I've never done like a set of games. Like I'm writing for a set of games, so this is harder. But I'd probably say last night gave us some really good games. What can we expect tonight? And something like that along those lines. Anything's possible, something around there. Mr. Carter, what do you think about that?
Yeah,
great lead. As Rob pointed out, that Connecticut and the Florida Atlantic went well. The margin of the Connecticut game, you could see them maybe beating Arkansas or whatever. And remember, William, you've got to work Sonny Lee into that story. So you got like 2 more weeks. I got a feeling after the NCAA, William, she's going to be 88 and out the gate back to Los Angeles. Quick story, Robin William. I'll be brief. One of the amazing, talking about history, this is an amazing deal. Sonny Lee comes from a group called the Hmong. The Hmong. They were in Thailand and Cambodia. These were mercenary fighters for the United States during the Vietnam War. They kept it really and they promised the people homes in California when they after they fought for the United States as secret, sort of CIA type force. And Sonny Lee's, I guess, parents or grandparents came to the United States with a home because they fought, or some of the family members fought in the Vietnam War. So when you meet her and propose to her, William, you can tell her you like the Hmong family. So
yeah, and they were amazing. That is an incredible story. You worked with, I believe they worked with U.S. Special Forces, and they brought a lot of them back to Fort Bragg in Fayetteville, North Carolina. They came into the Charlotte airport and Cherry Point, but incredible story. I mean, Sonny Lee, absolutely just wish her she is in this case, she's earned her NIL. Okay. I mean, she came in with that, but here's something interesting. Dave Cody listening out in Bellingham, Washington, before he gets out to the golf course, that beautiful view of snow-covered Mount Baker in the background, 10,726. AUB-BURN, Auburn. I replaced a northerner at WSFA TV who said that over and over and over. Jim Nance anchors pro golf for CBS Masters in early April and was Fred Couples' roommate at the University of Houston. People kind of forget. He was a hell of a golfer. Wasn't he the 7th or 8th man on that golf team? So, William, you watch. You see what's happening, and I think Bo and I have seen it. Writers, if you go back 20 years ago, sports writers were typically not allowed to go on sports radio shows. Now it's awesome because you've got writers coming on shows as guests or hosts. We have Buddy Martin, GatorBaitMedia.com, Tony Barnhart, Mark Schleybaugh. So many great writers that we're so blessed to have on here. I will say this, William, and Bo, you can back me up, agree or disagree. Work on learning all the social media, radio, TV, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, face mask, all that stuff. Are you looking at it like that for your career? Because you're not going to just be some guy with, a spare tire hanging down over your belt that's just, chain smoker getting hammered every night, right? That's the old days of that's what it used to be like. It was a rough life. But those are the best storytellers, I promise you, ever. So you got to go live the stories, but are you prepared to take it and understanding? I would think you are.
Yes, sir, I am. I'm definitely prepared. I love reading different stories and taking bits and pieces of what I can learn from those stories just to apply into my own writing, especially through social media and stuff like that.
Yeah. So for TV, for audio, because again, a great sports writer, look at Bo Carter. Think about this. Tony Barnhart from Union Hill, Georgia, a town of about 1,500 people, as he says, with a couple of traffic lights. Went to Georgia, wrote for the Atlanta Constitution, became the face, Mr. College Football, CBS, SEC Network, now the media guides. I think the best guests, Bo, that we ever can have on this show are the writers. And it's because they think about what they're saying because they've already written it. Look at you, the great orator, you're the Oracle of Delphi, the Oracle of the Metroplex. Think about that. You get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and study, drill before you come. No, but really, you're able to take all these stories from your noodle and put them in the vernacular with ease. It's like watching a hawk fly.
Thanks, Rob, and William also be careful. He's doing his bird calls today, William. Watch. But,
here goes my coffee here.
He's got a little spike to that coffee. But you might beware of TikTok. You might be on the Chinese national government list for where they probably have a chip in everybody's TikTok account that shows exactly where you're.
I am doing what I was told to do.
I love the guy that went before Congress. Oh, we have what do you say? We have a wall that prevents our Chinese government from learning anything.
You betcha. Yeah. I got some beachfront property in Kansas. Let's talk about buying that from me. Mildred just gave me the stopwatch. She carries an old watch fob from the 1890s around in her house robe. We're going to take a quick commercial break. We're going to be right back with William, Billy Ray Valentine, Halliday, and Bo Carter. Rob Browne, Sidelines. In 30 seconds. All right. Hallie and Brooks down in Jamaica listening to Sidelines on their handheld device. And just let me remind everybody that Sidelines, www.sidelines.live, sync it, go on our website, and then sync it to your favorite device, which could be your iPhone, handheld phone, a laptop, an iPad, a desktop. Could be through your audio system in your boat, your truck, your helicopter, your car, your plane. If you have a metal plate in your head, tilt to the left at 45 degrees, get free direct TV, and you can hear Sidelines uninterrupted. It's like William is spinning around down there, man. It's like that mushroom tea, man. Watch out. And it's just thinking my daughter and Brooks hanging out with Bob Marley in the way. Well, Bob Marley long since deceased. But the Wailers, Bob Marley and the Wailers, he has a lot of kids. I'll never forget his son, Rohan Marley, that played for the Miami Hurricanes, could flat-footed, was about a 5'9", 5'10" linebacker, absolute stud, could stand there flat-footed and do a backflip. I don't know, William, if you can do that, but William, looks like William has knocked himself out. I'm trying to find him there. William, maybe he'll be back on the internet. But anyway, Bo, looking now at where we are going in college sports, college football, basketball, there's rules changes being proposed. Looking forward to having some people on that can make some sense out of all that. But TV contracts, you've seen on the negotiation side for a conference like the Southwest Conference, like the Big 12. Again, the SEC is about to go from making $55 million a year from CBS with that deal for the SEC Game of the Week to $300 million plus with Disney. Do you think that's a good fit for the SEC with Disney? I want your thoughts on that. It's a lot more money, but is it the best deal the SEC could get considering what the Big Ten has put together? Because it's ginormous when compared to the SEC.
Interesting. Part of the Big Ten deal is, I think, don't they have like 40% of the television sets or media, 70. Media things? Yeah, 70% in the United States in their footprint. So you've got it there, right? Hey, by the way, too, William might be going to class, Rob. He's walking. It's good to attend class. That's good. That's good.
I feel like the David Letterman show, Larry Bud Melman and Brother Theodore and some of these characters he used to have on there. I don't know what Letterman had in his drink. Or was it, I watched something the other day, Johnny Carson. It was a rerun. It was, he took a sip of what was in Dean Martin's drink. Dean Martin would be, don't you remember how much fun TV was back in those days? You'd have the Dean Martin roast on a Dean Martin roast on a Friday night, and you would have all kinds of stuff going on the set with Foster Brooks, Rich Little, Don Rickles, of course, Dean Martin, Rowan and Martin, Laugh-In. I mean, why don't we have TV like that anymore? Angie Dickinson would be on there. Who could ever forget Raquel Welch coming out on the set of The Tonight Show, or Dolly Parton coming out there? And I mean, we need to get back to that, because I say it every day. Free speech is alive and well. The First Amendment on sidelines. We don't have, you can't say that. You might hurt somebody's feelings. You know what? Sorry, get over it. You better get ready for the real world, because you go into sales, you're going to be told no a lot. Mm-hmm. You better adopt a philosophy. No means tell me more. But looking at the TV, Bo, and I'm asking you, what are you hearing? Is there movement in the aisles here at Scott Field and Starkville, Mississippi? Is there movement? Arizona State, Arizona, maybe to the Pac-12, Utah, and Colorado. It's Colorado. And those Midwesterners, Mike Gottfried used to say it on the ESPN games. Colorado. I mean, he's from Ohio. I forgive him. But anyway, what about Oregon and Washington? Are they going to go to the Big Ten? I mean, there's got to be some order in all this chaos. But what are you hearing about conference realignment? Because something's going to hit as soon as basketball ends.
Yeah, Nevada is another one, Rob. Don't ever call them Nevada. They want to be called Nevada.
Nevada. Yeah.
But now, a couple of quick things about the SEC. One thing, the Longhorn Network is going to disappear and go into the SEC network when Texas and Oklahoma join the conference in 24. And that's a $30 million a year payout from ESPN to Texas. That sort of kind of almost broke up the Big 12 in 2011 when they started that. And then, again, ESPN promotes itself so well, and through all its various, the different ESPN, the 5 or 6 communities, plus all the social networking they do. It's I think the SEC got a pretty good deal out. And again, Fox is kind of like the big bear roaming around out there too. Yeah. And, but with ESPN, you also have the ABC element and a lot of Disney money. So it's I think they got a pretty good deal out of it. And to your point about the four corner schools maybe come to the Big 12. I've also heard Gonzaga. It's really Brett Yormark, the Big 12 commissioner, of course worked in the NBA. A lot of basketball things. They had an interesting thing too, Rob, in correlation that they had a special thing at Rucker Park. The great place where they had all the pickup games in Brooklyn, New York area, with a couple of Big 12 coaches and Big 12 banners. A little recruiting for those 14 and 15-year-olds that are out there shooting on the baskets with no nets out there at Rucker Park. So that was an interesting deal they set up yesterday with Kansas State playing in Madison Square Garden. So.
Yeah. So they went out there on the streets and just did like kind of that's awesome. That was
the Noel out there. You never know.
So isn't he from New York?
I think so.
I love that. Hey, my wife and I yesterday were on a hike on the ridge, and we were listening to a Nick Saban talk about you got to be tough. You need to listen to these coaches. Tom Izzo, you listen to these great coaches that you respect, and everybody's got talented players, some more than others, on the roster. But if you're not tough, you're gonna collapse. You're not gonna make it through the tough times. Here's an interesting question from a listener. This is really interesting. In Deerfield Beach, Florida, Ernest T. Bass, especially when I'm dancing. The more you're talking, the more I'm balking. I ain't saying nothing, Sheriff. Ernest T., you better come in here right now. But anyway, this is an interesting question from Ernest T. Bass, Deerfield Beach, Florida. Looking at the SEC going forward and the ACC going forward, how soon is it before one of the two just gobbles up the other? Well, can I answer that question for Ernest T? I think he had too many rocks hit him in the head. I just wonder, and I hope the ACC makes it purely just for I love the basketball, but the football is underrated.
Mm-hmm.
Why is it that the ACC seems to be just sitting there in neutral?
That's a good point. They could add, and the SEC, Greg Sankey said this quite a few times, 16 is like the magic number for a conference. You can split into quadrants, divisions, whatever. When you get to 18 and 20, you've got some really tough paradigm, especially for scheduling, because you can load up, like the old days in the SEC, Alabama and Georgia never played each other, right? They played 20 times in history or whatever. So they managed to keep them from having to meet up. Maybe we're now in the SEC championship game almost every year. But you've got to kind of keep it under control. That was why the Southeastern Conference was formed in 1933. They had the old Southern Intercollegiate Athletic Conference. I think they'd gotten up to 33 schools, and they couldn't have a meeting because they had so many people in the room, to be honest.
Well, this one, I tell you what, it's interesting. Interesting comment from Howard Sprague in Anniston, Alabama, listening. Howard says, funny how Alabama could never fit Georgia into their schedule, but made sure to play Vanderbilt every year.
That's right.
Howard Sprague, the county clerk. Get back to the books, Howard.
You got to love it during the 2020 COVID season too, Rob. I think they I don't know how they pull names out of a hat or whatever, the 10 SEC game, but everybody wanted Vanderbilt, which went 0-10. First time in school history they did not win at least one game. Chattanooga or Furman or Little Sisters the Poor or somebody. So, tough year for the Commodores that time.
Coach Bryant was always such the benevolent man. He would split the gate, wouldn't he, when they played Vanderbilt?
He coached there in the 40s. So.
Oh yeah, with Red Sanders.
Oh yeah, he was quite a character.
And that's where he met Logan Young. Logan, the grandfather.
Yes.
Yeah, the father of Logan Jr. And Coach Bryant had applied or was going to interview, I believe, at Arkansas.
That's right.
And it was that Sunday, December 7th, 1941. He crossed what would be today the old bridge, we call it, the Harahan Bridge, was going through Memphis. And the news broke. Actually, he was going through Memphis, and I think he was between maybe Parkin and Forest City when the word got out about Pearl Harbor.
Mm-hmm.
He went back, and I believe he may have joined the Navy in Memphis or Nashville. But he was, being an Arkansas native from Fordyce, Arkansas. You know who the man who would claim to be the second best coach ever to come out of Fordyce was?
Not Ken Hadfield. He was from Helena, but
Helena. That would be Larry Lacewell.
That's right. He was the Fordyce Redbugs.
Yeah. And you think about the number of great coaches, Butch Davis. Look at all. Jimmy Johnson was from Beaumont, but he played at Arkansas.
Mm-hmm.
I had a man tell me 3 weeks ago, he was in the 1987 Arkansas-Miami game at War Memorial Stadium in Little Rock, where the zoo is. And that's the game where Miami and Jimmy Johnson came up there and laid the wood to Arkansas, beat Arkansas 51-7. And this man I met recently was telling me he was there sitting with Jerry Jones. And Jerry Jones said, "You see that man down there on the sidelines coaching Miami?" He said, "Yeah." He goes, "That man is a genius, and I'm going to hire him because I'm going to buy the Dallas Cowboys."
That's true.
You know how much Jerry Jones paid for the Dallas Cowboys when he bought them?
I'm trying to remember. What was it, like 200 million or something? Maybe I'm trying to remember. I can't. I think
it was 165 million.
165. Yeah.
And they're worth now in excess. What do you think, Bo? $6 billion?
I've heard 5 or 6 billion on the. I think they're it depends. It goes between the New York Yankees and the Cowboys about the most expensive franchise according to Forbes magazine. So,
well, the Cowboys, and yet, as of yet, undisclosed or unreleased photos of Marilyn Monroe in a bikini are two of the most sought after things. As is a road win for the Cowboys in the playoffs, which they got this year for the first time since 1993 when they beat the GOAT Tom Brady. Now, as of this moment, Tom Brady is still retired. Now, what might happen is if he has young kids and he's at home all day with them, I'm going back. I'm going to be a missionary. Get me a mountain bike. I'm going with the Mormon guys. Send me to Australia for 2 years. But that'll be interesting. But I tell you what, we lost William. He had a breakdown in the connection, but TikTok may have been watching and just said, we don't like what you're saying. You're having too much fun. But anyway, Bo, I tell you what I think, and I got another interesting question here. I tell you what, you got to wonder about some of these names. Buffalo Bill here from, this is interesting, Rapid City, South Dakota. Interesting where we have listeners. Buffalo Bill is asking, he goes, "What do you boys back east think about how we play basketball out here in the hinterlands?" That's a good question.
That's right. Hey,
Buffalo Bill.
Look at Creighton out there in Omaha. They're the pioneer school out there, whatever. Rob, that Creighton-Princeton game tonight could be. That might be one more. It's either good, and Princeton's it's not like the Pete Carrill days playing the 40s and 50s. They're playing a little transition basketball. And like I said, Creighton 22 out of 22 free throws the other night. They've got those good upper Midwest pure shooters or whatever. McDermott, the coach, is just a sort of a genius or whatever. So it's that could be one of the more intriguing games. It's all so much fun, Rob. It's amazing.
Is Creighton? Is that a Jesuit school?
Yes. So they're very, very strong.
Gonzaga, the Jesuits. I mean, these small private Catholic schools are amazing. All right, we got just a few minutes left. Want to say this. We most often see the face of Christ in the least among us. So what are you talking about? Well, go out and help people. Yes. If you can. You don't have to, but if you have the means, go out and help people and let them know that they matter. Okay? Find excuses to win. Okay? If it's raining, get up, put your raincoat on, go make things happen. Okay? Decline is a choice. Success is a choice. What do you want? Bo, you know what? It's so much fun doing this show 6 days a week, getting to talk to people like you. You remember the movie 300 when they had the oracles of Delphi? Those old guys, ooh, man, they got beat with the ugly stick, but they were smart. Yeah, the oracles of Delphi. Yeah, Audrey's trying to argue. Well, no, I'm thinking of Ephialtes, the hunchback, who sold, with the thespians and the occasions, and then the 300 Spartans. He wanted to fight, but they wouldn't let him do it. But that's another story. By the way, Uncle Boyd went over there to Thermopylae, which in Greek translation means the hot gates. I think the water has moved back 4 or 5 miles from where it used to be, coming right up there. And of course, everything is still there. Mountains don't really change in a few thousand years. But I think the coolest thing to take away from what we're saying, and you've pointed this out, there is movement in the aisles. There's a lot going on. And I'm going to get you back on here. Hopefully you can join us tomorrow for the Saturday Roundtable, because you, being a member of the Baseball Writers Association of America, the Football Foundation, National Football Foundation, you're writing constantly. Butch Thompson will be on with us tomorrow. We're going to look at SEC and college baseball. We'll talk about what happened in the Sweet 16. But, Bo, I just know one thing. I want some Buc-ee's chips. Hot brisket. Let's go get them, all right?
And Rob, I apologize. You'll love this. In the face of Christ, we've got a men's prayer breakfast at church tomorrow. But I'll definitely get with you another Saturday if you have time.
Hey,
you can defer. The good Lord
calling, Bo. Don't ever apologize.
I'm going to put in a good word for you at the prayer breakfast.
I need it. Hey, until then, folks, go out there, make a positive difference. I'm going to eat lunch with Jack Turner and John Turner at the Waffle Shop at Calvary. Till then, have a great day. We are out of here. Oh, we got a wasp over there.